Today's episode, once again, brought to you by, wait for it, nobody will. No, today's episode is with my buddy Bo Schultz. He's a former Major League pitcher. He threw for the Diamondbacks and the Toronto Blue Jays. Got a true, in the baseball sense, rags to riches story where he just came from almost nothing, undrafted, went to independent ball, ended up getting to the big leagues. It's a great story. And we have some really fun stories from our days in Double-A in Mobile, Alabama. So great episode with my buddy Bo Schultz. Once again, Too Tall Sports Podcast. You can find me everywhere, YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Please subscribe, rate, and review. I need those 5 stars. If you can't find them, ask me or ask one of your family members. They'll help you out. But anyway, at Too Tall Sports Podcast on social media, you can find me there. And really enjoy getting these episodes out to you guys and let me know what you think. So here's today's episode with Bo Schultz. Welcome back to another edition of the Too Tall Sports Podcast. My next guest is a former big leaguer for the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Toronto Blue Jays. We played together in Mobile, Alabama back in 2012 and 13. He played his college ball at Northwestern and is now an assistant of baseball operations for the Milwaukee Brewers. He is my old buddy, Bo Schultz. What's going on, Bo?
What's up, Big Show? How you doing, man? Glad to be here.
Yeah, me too, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, it's a really cool podcast you picked up, especially during quarantine stuff like you were talking about, taking advantage of downtime. This is awesome.
Exactly, man. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad to have you, and you got a great story, so that's why I wanted to bring you on the show. And I guess we'll start with you're originally from Dallas, Texas, and you started your baseball career there. What kind of got you into baseball early on as a kid?
Family. I mean, I grew up with sight reading box scores. So, I mean, just kind of from the beginning, learning that way. Loved playing all the time, goofing around with a bomb bat and, a beach ball in the front yard and just kind of gradually going from there. So goofing around, playing anything, any excuse to be outside was the way to go for me.
For sure. Now, as far as playing baseball in your high school days, were you always a pitcher, or did you play multiple positions, or how did you become the pitcher that you ended up being?
That was a very, very long story to kind of follow from there. I didn't really start pitching until I was in school at Northwestern. In high school, I was good enough to be on the team and play some, but I wasn't exactly a go-to guy for everything. So I played infield up the middle, and then Matthew Stafford came around a couple years. Even though he's a couple years behind me, he became the shortstop quickly. So that was an easy transition to the outfield. And,
Wow.
I could throw hard, so it made it easier. I could run a little bit. Outfield seemed like the thing to do. And then, did that. High school was over. Didn't even really think about going and playing anywhere else. And that was kind of it. So, I mean, I may be underselling, but at the same time, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot there with it. I didn't have an exciting baseball experience per se in high school.
So is that the same high school that Kershaw went to?
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
Stafford?
Clayton was there as well, of course. Yeah.
Wow.
He,
Okay.
he was the first baseman and the pitcher, so it didn't necessarily affect me as directly. But watching those two guys up close when they were 15 as freshmen and 16 as sophomores it was unbelievable. I mean, they were clearly head and shoulders talent-wise above everyone else, in addition to physically head and shoulders above most people. So
Yeah, I didn't know you went to the same high school as them. That's crazy.
yeah, they were special. I mean, everything they did was special. It's been well publicized, obviously, that they grew up playing pee-wee together, basketball together, all that kind of stuff. So being able to be with them, at least kind of tangentially, was pretty cool to watch.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I had Mike Bollinger on a few episodes ago, and I think he played against you guys in high school, maybe one of our former teammates in the minors, actually, for Bo and I. But did you play against Bollinger in high school?
I don't think so. I think he went to McKinney North, which I believe was a new high school. But honestly, they were on a different program, and they were the players that were legit. So they were doing summer game, summer league stuff. with best of the best traveling the country, and I was just kind of around playing local equivalents of
Okay.
travel ball.
Right. Okay. Now, as far as you get into Northwestern, I mean, obviously you got in academically. So how did you turn into, now I'm going to play baseball at this school too?
Well, I somehow convinced myself that I was good enough to play Division I baseball somewhere. I had a couple like letters from junior colleges or Division II schools where it's like, hey, would you consider this? And for me, I knew baseball wasn't going to be a long-term thing, so I wanted to go to the best school I could go to. So Northwestern it was, and Northwestern was the decision because of the journalism school, which that's what I wanted to do. Once I got up there, I figure Northwestern's a Big Ten bottom feeder. Maybe I can walk onto the team here.
There you go.
And so I gave it a go. It took a little while to kind of get on the radar. I mean, I emailed the coach and called the office, didn't hear back. Finally got to a point where I put a sticky note on the door and was like, look, I may stink, but just give me a call back and let me play catch with someone or something. So I did that and ended up going out and played catch with the assistant coach. And he called the pitching coach. He's like, oh, maybe you should come watch. And then he came out, I played catch with him, and then he called the head coach. He's like, maybe you should come watch. So I was good enough to at least get some attention that way. I joined the team for fall ball and did that. The week before the team traveled for the first series, they called me in and they're like, hey, look, we don't have any spots. So this has been fun. Do you want to be basically a team manager and just kind of help out? I'm like, it's pretty sour, but at the same time, it's like, what exactly could I complain about? I mean, I had an opportunity to work out with them and have fun. It was a good group of guys that I enjoyed being around, and figured it's already been 5 months of this. I might as well just do a couple more months and give it a go the next year.
That's not easy to do, man, and just stick around and do that. You don't even know what your future holds there.
I know.
So.
Well, especially since they said you got a spot on the team next year. So I went and played in a summer ball league in Dallas back home, and then came back up, and they said, all right, you're going to be a pitcher. So I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And no dice, at least this time it was kind of like a month of fall ball where they said no thank you, as opposed to riding it out for several months. So I was even more sour at that point, but like, I guess I'm just going to be a student, and I turned into probably more of a social star than I should have been or wanted to be initially.
Yeah. So then so how did you go? I mean, you ended up playing 3 years though there, right? At Northwestern?
I played 2 years.
2 years.
And so I guess the fast forward version of my reentry point was the journalism school sends you to a media market somewhere during the fall of your junior year. So my junior year, I was in New York interning with Outdoor Life magazine, and like kind of working out just so I don't turn into a lazy person, but that was about it. And I got an AOL instant message, just to date it, and a couple of the seniors on the team were like, hey, do you think you can still throw hard? There's an opening on the team right now. One of the senior pitchers failed out of school, so we got a spot. So at that point, it's like, all right, cool. I'll fast forward, started working out, started throwing, doing what I could to at least be good enough to where if I go back, it's not going to be a third kind of gut punch.
Right.
I went back and worked out for the team, had to sit down with the coach. He basically said, are you going to take this seriously? Are we going to, is this going to be like your freshman year when I showed up, every time and did everything, but was probably hungover over half the time? And I said, I'm all in. I want to be a part of it. And they basically said, all right, cool. Here's your chance. You can be on the team. So it fortunately fell in my lap that I tried a couple times. It didn't work. But I guess made enough of an impression either as a decent guy or someone who could throw hard enough to maybe figure out pitching. And that was kind of it.
Okay. Before we get to your pro ball stuff, as far as just going to Northwestern, for people that don't know, it is in the Big Ten, and it's obviously not, Michigan, Penn State, all the big time football programs or whatever, Ohio State. But what was it like for you going to school there, just from the social and football games and all of that whole aspect?
It was awesome. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's certainly not one of those. I think the toughest part is you show up on Saturday and the student scene is really thin. Northwestern usually drew the 11 a.m. game on ESPN2, so it's good for alumni who are watching the game. It's not the best for students who are rolling out of bed feeling like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to prioritize tailgating and go to a backyard and then kind of make my way over to the game around the end of the first quarter. So,
right.
Not to say that I wasn't a part of that wave of fans,
Sure.
but when the big teams came through, it was amazing. I mean, it really was awesome to see Ohio State and Wisconsin in particular just take over Evanston on Thursday night and, red everywhere. And it's like, oh, man, this is for real. And then the stadium would be packed, and it was the closest we would be to 50-50 in the stadium. But, the super fans would buy out season tickets just for that one game at Northwestern. And seeing that kind of energy, it's like it brought it in. And Northwestern seemed to usually play up to the opposition, which was great. So, it was a lot of fun. But I started off on too much of a high. The first or second home game my freshman year was a double overtime win over the number 4 ranked Ohio State.
Oh, wow.
So we all thought like, all right, we're here for the next generation of Wildcat football, and it slowly kind of went down after that. But yeah, the experience in Big Ten football is amazing.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And you've had some notable alumni, obviously, from that school. And I remember I had to bring up this story. You told me that you had met Michael Wilbon, of course, the famous ESPN on-air anchor, and he's been around forever. He's on PTI, all that stuff. So how did you meet Michael Wilbon?
So a little background on that. A couple summers earlier, I had interned with Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith, and it was more like, okay, I've been around these guys. They're normal guys. No, I clearly am not in their social circle. Therefore, I don't know Mike Wilbon or Jeff Greenberg or the rest of the Northwestern Mafia kind of across ESPN. But I figure, okay, well, they're normal enough people. I'll give it a shot. So we're at my wife's reunion, and one of her best friend's husbands is a huge Mike Wilbon fan. And he looks at me. He's like, dude, Mike Wilbon is right there. So I walk over. I'm like, hey, Mike, big fan. Bo Schultz, nice to meet you. And he's like, okay, Bo Schultz. How do I know that name? Pitcher for the Oakland A's, right? I'm like, oh, my God, you nailed it. And I'm a minor leaguer in A-ball. So clearly by reputation, the Northwestern super fan, it really was all in, which was really cool. And that was a, 45-second interaction, but it was super cool to be acknowledged as a nobody.
Oh, my God, that's awesome. And I want to go off script for a second. I got to go back to you saying you interned with Stephen A. and Max Kellerman. How did that go, and how were they to deal with? Because I do watch them on TV sometimes and the other sports shows, but what was it like actually interning with them?
Oh, man, it was amazing. They weren't on the same show.
Right, at the time they were doing separate, yeah.
Right. So Max included me more often as kind of the butt of jokes as, one of the interns, which was great just because, I got kind of lit up on air from everything from this guy doesn't know how to pick out the perfect banana to why is my oatmeal and walnuts not crunchy enough or, whatever. So we at least created somewhat of an on-air rapport, which was great. And Stephen A. was a little bit less so just because he had another counterpart that he was on the show with. So It was less interaction between Max by himself with the booth and Stephen A. and his partner, Mike Missinelli. So, it was really cool. They were larger-than-life personalities in 2007, and it's been incredible to watch them just explode into who they are over the last 10, 12 years.
Yeah, Max was doing LA radio for a while, and then Stephen A. brought him back when Skip went to Fox, and then they're on First Take every day. It's crazy. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. I had no idea. So
One
so
of
you got
oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Quick aside on
Yeah,
Max as well. So
yeah.
one of my best friends from Northwestern was a huge Yankee fan. Lived in New York and listened to Max when he was in New York. And then when Max went to LA, my buddy happened to move to LA too and still listened to him because of the hometown connection. And he called in to Max's show every day just to find an excuse when I was playing with Toronto. And finally got on air and said, something fast like, "Hey, Uncle Max, former dummy intern Bo is coming into town to play against the Angels this weekend. Thought you want to know." And Max was like, "What? What? Bo, the intern?" And then we had a little, Twitter, kind of interaction. But it was crazy that, running across Uncle Max in a different way.
That is cool. That's awesome, man. That's great. Well, now we can get back to your career. So after the draft comes in 2008, you don't get drafted, and so at that point, you sign as a free agent with the Oakland A's, and you go to rookie ball. What was that whole experience like for you? Did you think, all right, I still get to sign with somebody, but I don't know what my future holds in professional baseball?
Yeah, exactly. I have no idea what my future holds. I hadn't exactly gone all in assuming that baseball was going to work. I had hoped because the coaches had kind of told me like, "Hey, teams are starting to ask about you," which, looking back, they're probably asking about anybody that has a good game in a major conference.
Right.
So, a couple good games, I get some attention, and then I kind of fall off and whatever. So the good thing was I had enough traction to where when the Oakland A's gave me an opportunity, I wasn't a complete nobody on a scouting card. But yeah, I mean, I went in completely blind, no idea what to expect, and said, "All right, let's see where this goes." Worst case, I get to do this. Best case, maybe I get to Double A and I can justify um, applying for a job on a sports desk somewhere and leapfrogging my former classmates that went and worked for 5-6 years on the desk before going to a bigger market.
Right. Well, you got to play your second year. You went to Vancouver, and I played at that stadium before. The fans are a little crazy there, but what do you remember about the first? I know you had a funny story about the first time you played in Vancouver, Canada. Just a small minor league team, but what do you remember about playing there?
It was a small minor league team with a big time personality for a stadium, which was awesome. I believe it's Nat Bailey Stadium, but I mean, it was a short season team that I think fits 5,000, and they would have 5,000 day game or not. Whether it was a nooner or a night game, it was always full, which was, I mean, it kind of set us up to fail when we went and played other other minor league affiliates in the same
Yes.
league, and there'd be 35 people in.
Right.
So my first outing, I'm feeling a little hesitant because it's my first season as a submarine pitcher. Um, I go out there and I don't remember what the exact line was, but it was basically walk, wild pitch, hit by pitch, walk, wild pitch, something. So I mean, it was ugly, and I started getting booed. Pitching coach comes out, like a quick dude, get your head out. What are you doing? And I ended up striking out the side. So within the same inning, in the span of 5 minutes, I went from being booed off the field to cheered off the field, and it was a very interesting start to my career in Vancouver, but very indicative of what the Canadian fans are. Just super fans, excited for anything crazy to happen on the field.
Right. And I remember when we were I think this is the only time that happened where the fans, like we were leaving the stadium and they were throwing stuff at our bus. And this is short season, basically a level above rookie ball. Like, calm down, like I've never had that happen before in the minors of fans throwing shit at us. Like, I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And then the following year, you get to play in Kane County, which is in Illinois, so not too far away from Chicago, where you went to school at Northwestern. Where did you think you were at that point when you got to that level?
I think I was a little diluted kind of with baseball because, I mean, I was 24 years old in low A as a submarine pitcher. So I didn't really think about the fact that my only opportunity was strike out every hitter or give up no runs. Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of be an organizational filler, until I have a bad game or two, and then that'll be it. So I wasn't really aware of it. I just thought of it as cool. I'm at the next level. This is just kind of how it goes. And it was fun. It was fun playing there, slightly bigger stadiums, more fans, kind of easing in. But honestly, I think the most memorable part of that season was playing against probably one of the highest future earning minor league teams that I can think of. The Cedar Rapids team, it was right after that 2009 first round with 7 picks or something. It was like Mike Trout, Patrick Corbin, Tyler Skaggs, Randall Grichuk, et cetera. I just off the top of my head, boom.
Yeah,
I think
they were
like
loaded.
10 future big leaguers on that team.
Yeah.
And playing against that was exciting, but super intimidating as the old guy. Like, I'm 24 playing against these 19-year-olds that are better than I'll ever be. This is unbelievable.
Definitely. I had actually forgotten you were throwing sidearm, but I want to get back to how you changed that in a second. But so actually after that you get released by the A's, and then you decide to go play independent ball. So how did you mentally, I had this talk a lot with guys where nobody wants to ever go to independent ball, and they say they'll never do it until they actually do it, and it's their last chance to get back to pro ball. So you did that. You had that route. Where was your head at when you went to independent ball? Like, do you still believe in your ability at that point?
No, I didn't. I'd already committed the season in the summer to baseball. So for me, it's like, well, what am I going to do? Like, if I got released as, again, like a trick pitcher out of high A, like I have no future in this. But there were a couple guys that were buddies of mine that were released out of spring training that were on the same independent ball team, and it was near where I grew up. So they were playing in Grand Prairie, which is like 35, 40 minutes from where my parents lived. And I figure, why not? Finish out the season, have some fun, do it with some guys that I know, and kind of see what happens. So when I went there, I basically tried out again, even though they pulled me in and said, hey, you're basically going to make the team, but you got to try out. So I worked out as a submarine pitcher, and then I worked out as a regular pitcher as well, and said, I can do either. Let's see what happens. And there was a pitcher named Greg Smith, who was a former big leaguer. And I think this was the year between him being in the big leagues. He pulled me aside and basically said, dude, don't waste your time with that underhand stuff. Like, you don't exactly light it up, but you throw hard enough that if you figure it out, over the top, you can maybe be good. So that was kind of my transition from saying, yes, sir, I'll throw underhand as long as you let me, to, all right, I'm going to, I've got nothing to lose. I'm going to go back over the top and see if I can light up a radar gun.
It's crazy to think somebody actually had you throwing sidearm. Like, come on. Like, they should have known what you had in the tank there. So I'm shocked that you actually did that for as long as you did. But it's good that you figured it out.
Yeah, it on the high side, it allowed me to learn how to use my body better. So rather than falling down a mound throwing, average white righty, 88 to 92, touching 93, to figuring out how to actually use momentum and kind of get down the hill with some aggression. So that was definitely a long game plus that I didn't realize at the time. But
for sure,
yeah, that definitely gave me the opportunity to learn how to throw harder and kind of be a more athletic pitcher on the mound.
Yeah, and you get signed by the Diamondbacks, and you and I meet, I think, in 2012 or 2013. It was 2012.
2012, yeah.
Yeah, we were in ICU, and then you're doing all this Bandwork, and you're throwing hard, and you're the closer, and I'm like, okay, how did we get from that guy in independent ball to freaking this guy who's getting close to the big leagues, man? So that was pretty awesome getting to see you, and you would do all your stuff, and I didn't do. I probably should have followed your lead, but no, it was cool to see the way you worked out.
It was, it was something that I ran into Alan Jaeger during extended spring training in 2009, just because of like a friend of a friend. We ended up having dinner together, and Jaeger was like, here, try these, do these exercises, see what happens. So I just got religious with it. So I did my cuff stuff that teams will say, do your shoulder work.
Arm care.
I would do this. Yeah, exactly. and I do the bands as well. And, it turned into something that whether it was, ritual or routine or whatever, it was just something that I did. And I think that helped me long-term stay stronger, or at least get to whatever I would potentially have. But yeah, I mean, that entire summer was kind of like panic. This is my last chance. I've already blown it once before. What am I going to do? I have to do every little thing. So long term, that may have been something that hurt me because I did the try too hard thing, but it definitely was something that got me to play with you in AA. So, I mean,
Exactly.
I show up in, July, the day that Hank Aaron is
Oh yeah.
the day that Hank Aaron is throwing out the first pitch at Hank Aaron Stadium. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. I'm in AA.
We had a really fun team, and I wanted to bring a couple of those situations up. So we had one of the funny things we did was we had so many big leaguers on that team too, by the way, including yourself. It was a crazy team. But one of the things we did was have WWE entrance themes for everybody. So I think mine must have been the Big Show, of course, right? And we had all of them, but it was great. Do you remember? I don't know. Did you have one too?
I didn't have one, but I was I always did the best I could to help Wade with the Stone Cold Steve Austin entrance, because that was by far the best. He was our ringleader when it came to that.
So Wade was, just for those of you who don't know, he was like our clubhouse attendant. He was a special needs guy, so he obviously was had some disabilities, but we had a lot of fun with him. And I know you have a good story about him, but my favorite was when we we made him go in the cold tub, and he just completely lost his shit. Like, he just couldn't handle it. It was so cold, and he freaked out. So everything was fine, but it was still funny. But what's your favorite Wade the clubhouse attendant story?
There were some that were tough to watch. I don't remember what happened or who did it, but someone convinced him that it was good luck to put Red Hot, which is like the extra strength Tiger Balm, whatever, under his armpits, and that was like Roger Clemens does it, so it's good luck. And he did it, and oh man, at first they're like half the guys that are kind of egging it on, and the other half are like, hey, come here, we got to get some shaving cream, we got to get that off, like it's gonna get worse and worse. So there were some that weren't so supportive, and others that were a little more big brother, but that happened. I think the best one that I heard that I wasn't there for was the rumor that he was traded for Didi Gregorius.
That's right.
When someone had convinced him that there was a trade, because Didi was in the AA team across the way.
Right.
So Wade walked over and said, hey, I guess I got traded for Didi. So should I take his stuff over there? Should I move my locker in here? And I don't know how far it actually went, but from what I understand, it went up until about 30 minutes before game time. So, hijinks all around.
That was hilarious. That was, I think, in Pensacola when we played against them.
Maybe that's what it was, yeah.
Oh, my God. I forgot about that one. That was a really funny one. So, yeah, it's just clubhouse stuff. That's the stuff nobody gets to hear about, those funny stories. So I'm glad you had those, too.
Yeah, I think he's a Hall of Famer now, too, right?
Oh, I don't know. Did he make the Hall of Fame for
Wade
Mobile?
got no, for sure, Mobile. I think he got or Southern League. I think he got like baseball Hall of Fame recognition.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
It was super cool. In 2012, when we were there for his 1,000th game in uniform.
That's right.
Yeah, big Wade.
Yeah, big Wade. And you got to throw the last pitch of our AA championship season, which was pretty cool. So that was fun, winning a minor league championship. Took forever, and everybody wanted to go home at the end of the year, but it was still cool that we got to win that last championship. Do you remember that final pitch?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely felt a lot better placed than it was. The following year when they had the clip up on the scoreboard for the pregame intros, it's like, oh, and the pitch, and it was a soft fly ball, but looking back at it, it's like, man, it wasn't exactly a gut ball, but it was pretty close.
Yeah.
So, one of those where the baseball gods, for whatever reason, smiled on me.
As long as they get them out, who cares?
That's right.
So you get a chance to go to AAA and the Arizona Fall League. So now you went from not being, where is Bo in independent ball? Now you're in the Fall League where all the prospects go, and you're really knocking on the door to go to the big leagues. What do you remember about that experience in the Arizona Fall League?
It was very odd. when we did the team introductions, where we're all sitting in the clubhouse. Everyone showed up. This is the first time you've got a big league uniform or big league equivalent uniform in your locker, and you're feeling larger than life. And looking around, it's like, oh, that guy's like the number 1 prospect for their organization. That guy's the number 7 prospect in all of baseball, whatever. And they go around. It's like, all right, say your name, say an interesting fact, whatever. And it gets to me, and it's like, I'm Bo. I just turned 28, and I'm pretty sure I'm the oldest pitcher or oldest player in the history of the fall league, because everyone else is, it's like
20,
22, yeah. The superstars on their way up.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey guys. But it was so much fun, especially being around a bunch of guys that I ended up playing with a couple years later when I ended up in Toronto that were on that same team. And it was an awesome experience. It is cool to still see. That was 2013. Seeing established big leaguers that I played against, where it's like, that guy was my son in the fall league. And it's like, I'm sitting on the couch for a year and a half, and they're in the middle of, going into free agency. So it's amazing to see all the players you come across. And that was definitely something where it was awesome just to be on the same field as a bunch of superstars in the making.
For sure. Yeah, I can imagine. We moved to 2014. You make your MLB debut, but you have probably the coolest MLB debut of all time, right? Because you got to go to I think you got to go to Australia, right? There was those two games in spring training where the Dodgers and Diamondbacks played in the middle of March in Australia, and those games counted. They had like a 2-game series, and you got to go. So you got to actually be in the big leagues, but in Australia. What was that whole experience like?
That one was, I hate how surreal gets loosely thrown around, but that one was purely surreal. It's like, for all of camp, it's like, all right, cool. I'm having good camp, good outing. I guess I'm starting a game in spring training now. Oh, had a good one. Oh, I'm starting another game in spring training. Maybe I have a chance to go. But they're playing it really close to the chest, and no one has any idea. I think the day before the flight, I ended up with a travel suit in my locker tucked behind the jersey. And I'm like,
what is this?
What? I'm looking around. I'm like, is this for everybody just in case? And then it was kind of confirmed later on that day. And I'm thinking, awesome. Every player got a +1. So my wife, Neha, comes with me, and we're on the plane. And we have no idea what's going on. And all the big leaguers are acting like it's a big league flight. And the two of us are sitting there, strapped into our chairs, not moving. Like, I don't want to upset anybody. I'm not sure what I'm allowed to do, so I'm just going to sit still and only get up if I really, really have to. So we get down to Australia, and we get to explore Sydney, do the Sydney Harbour Bridge climb, see the Opera House, go to a couple zoos, go to a beach, and live, a big league lifestyle in a couple days. So we're working out afternoon practices. No one's sure what's going on. We have a scrimmage against Team Australia the day before the opening game. And I'm in the bullpen. I'm ready to go. Like, I don't get called. I don't go in. And there were, I think, 3 or 4 other guys that were like me, that were maybe on the team, probably not. And I'm like, crap, I missed my chance. Like, all right, well, at least we made the trip. And then the next day we show up to the clubhouse, and a reporter walks up to me while I'm putting my, workout shorts on. He's like, hey, congratulations. I'm like, for what? I didn't play yesterday. I said, no, congratulations. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then I go out for BP and come back in, and a couple of the other guys are like, hey, congratulations. I'm like, what is going on? No one said anything to me, and I walk over, and I look at the game card for the day, and my name's on there. I'm like, okay, that doesn't mean anything, because I'm looking at it as
you're on the list as a
everyone's
maybe.
on there,
Yeah.
right? And right before we go outside, someone finally grabbed me. I was like, dude, you made the team. Like, you're getting introduced. Okay, whatever. Still didn't quite get it. And then, they say, and the reserves, blah, blah, blah. Everyone walks out, Bo Schultz, number 58. I'm like, oh, oh, sweet. So I, at least made the team, as a reserve. Granted, the team only traveled the 2 starters, and I basically made the team because, of the provision that 2 of the other starters would stay home. So I filled one of those spots. So the best part was I was the 8th or 9th bullpen guy, but that was enough.
That was, right.
Didn't pitch in the first game, and the next day, I don't remember what the score was. We were down like 6-2 or something like that, and could be more or less. And they're like, "All right, Bo, you're going to pitch the 8th inning." Okay, sure. So I'm warming up and I'm throwing it as hard as I possibly can, and I'm terrified while I'm in the bullpen. And
right.
Fortunately, once the gate opened and I went out, the nerves went away. So the jog in was much more pleasant than I thought it otherwise could be.
Right.
And then after that, warmed up and everything was okay. And my first thought was, all right, don't throw down the middle. Just don't put it on a tee for Hanley Ramirez.
Right.
And of course, what do you do when you say don't do it?
You do it.
Wow. So he almost takes my hat off coming back up the middle, first pitch. Fortunately, after that, it was like I think it was a rollover and a changeup, which was awesome. My worst pitch at the time, at least I thought.
Yeah.
And then pop-up ground ball out. It was amazing. And then after the game, as the rookie, I didn't know the rules about the rookies grab the drinks for the bus and the flight. So I'm packing my stuff, heading out, getting ready to leave, and Miguel Montero goes like, "Hey man, like, grab the drinks." I'm like, looking over my shoulder, I don't know what am I doing? What am I grabbing? He's like, "Dude, go over, get a bag of waters, get a bag of beers, get on the bus." So I'm just, walking around, still kind of not sure what's going on. We get back to the, family and wives area, and Neha jumps, gives me a huge hug. And as I'm walking down the bus, trying to pass out waters and beers, Neha's like doing it, beating me to it because she's happy as can be too. And one of those experiences, I'm glad that someone at least remembers. Miggy, every time I run into him, still talks about how when I made my debut, my wife was more excited than I was.
That's awesome, man. What a great story. Like, not many people get to make their debut in Australia in a game that counts. Like that's pretty crazy.
It was amazing.
So that's awesome. I want to skip ahead to you made your way to the Toronto Blue Jays. I think you went on waivers, got traded or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you got to play with a different organization. So this was your third organization, but it wasn't too far from Chicago either. Not a long flight from Toronto to Chicago. But now that you're in Toronto, what was your experience like with the Blue Jays for those couple of years?
Oh, that place was amazing. Everything about Toronto. Sports city. It may be a hockey city just because of the Leafs, but at the same time, if a sports team is playing, they're interested. If a sports team is good, the stadium's full. So, it went from kind of like exciting and fun, and there's a little bit of buzz to in 2015 when we sold the farm to go for the big guys on a couple of big trades. Day one, we got a packed stadium with David Price on the mound and Tulo at shortstop, mixed into an already stacked offense, and it's just like, oh my God, this is what it's all about. You walk around, nice people, beautiful town, everything's clean. The travel is amazing. To be in the big leagues was the biggest blessing ever, but to do it in Toronto really was an amazing experience.
I saw that you got your first save ever against the A's. Is that right? So
yeah.
A little bit of redemption there. The team that signed you, let you go, and then take that.
Yeah. It was kind of a perfect storm in my favor. It was one where Osuna had been kind of working a lot. Granted he was 20, but he, I think, just had a predetermined off day that no one else knew about except for him. And if I'm not mistaken, I think R.A. Dickey went 8 1/3, and it was just one of those games where it's like, all right, cool, he's going to go for the complete game. Great. A couple guys get on, get Bo up. And I'm like, no, Osuna's supposed to get up right now. Like,
Yeah.
the 7th, 8th inning, the bridge is over. Get the real guy in.
Right.
So I went in, and it was awesome. It was, quick 2 outs, game over. Put it in my back, put the ball in my back pocket. And I think my favorite memory of that was Danny Valencia was like, "Hey man, take that to arbitration." And I'm like, "What does that mean?"
Yeah, right.
I've got 100 days in the big leagues, and we're talking about 3 years from now. Like, come on.
Yeah, no, that's hilarious. That's crazy. So you had a good run there, and then I did see you had some injuries. Yeah, I think you had Tommy John, and you had a hip surgery too. I think I saw. I had the similar one.
Yeah.
That's tough. So how did you deal with those rehabs mentally?
The hip was tough, but it was easier just because I felt like I had established myself not as a big leaguer, but good enough to be, when I'm healthy, I'm going to be back in the big leagues the next year.
Yeah.
So that helped. I went into spring training trying to be ready as fast as I could. So that was one thing. And then 2 years later, kind of when the elbow went, it was, I guess I kind of had I tried to have the same opinion of, hey, everything's going to be okay. This is going to be fine. I'm going to come back from it. I'm going to be a big leaguer again. No big deal. More artificial confidence than the first time around. But, you know how that goes. If you lose your confidence on anything, especially during a rehab,
yeah,
you're going to do yourself such a disservice. You're going to have a bad setback or something's going to happen. So, fortunately for me, the blessing in disguise with that was when when my twins were 3 months old is when I had surgery. So I was able to be home, do my rehab in Chicago, check back in, go to the complex, and once a month or once every 6 weeks to kind of do status checks and then go back home. So I was able to be with family throughout. And then once things started to accelerate in the fall, I'm thinking, all right, cool. Ball's coming out. I'm feeling confident. Things are good. And then November 1st or 2nd, whatever it was, 5 days after the World Series comes around, and I get the phone call like, hey, you've been outrighted. And, I'm like, shit. I thought it was going to be fine. I thought everything was going to be good. So I went into the off season without a team and not sure what I'm doing, coming off an elbow surgery, feeling as uncertain as I possibly could, but confident in my work ethic. And that's where I got an opportunity with the Pirates and joined in with them, had a good, really good experience going through spring training, made it back on the field for the last couple games of spring training. I think I pitched in the second to last one and technically didn't miss any time, went straight into, as a non-rostered guy, technically rehab assignment, but just assigned with the Bradenton team, pitched there for a couple weeks, and then joined the AAA team and was kind of going. So, that was kind of the end of it, of the rehab. Like, all right, I'm confident in what I did. I'm good. I'm strong. Everything's back to normal. Even though, it's one of those things. Once they open you up, you're not quite what you once were. And
you lose time because other guys are coming up, right
exactly.
behind you. So
exactly.
So you ended up retiring about a year and a half ago, March of 2019. Did you kind of know what direction you were going to go, or how did you go from not playing anymore to now you're working for the Brewers in their operations department?
No clue is what my approach was. I worked out for a couple months, continuing to throw, run, lift, all that, trying to pursue opportunities to see what could happen. I got a couple phone calls, but it was more like, hey, would you consider come to the facility, maybe go be on a Phantom for a AA or AAA team. And at that point in my career, not that I was above it by any means, but it turned into kind of a, risk reward. Like, I've got young kids, my wife's working her butt off raising kids and working. It's hard to justify this as a last effort. I know I'm not what I could be or what I once was when they signed me with the hope that I would be that again. So I kind of just took the accepted it and took it as, all right, I'm done. Moved forward, and I started calling around. I mean, you know how it is with the network in sports. Like it's much tighter, and I like to think more open. But one thing I did learn is everyone's willing to give you advice and have a phone call, but it's really tough to earn a favor, if you know what I mean. Like you can kind of get on the docket, but it's hard to kind of get someone to to push you forward. So it was really good learning experience. I spent I think June, July, August, kind of just talking to anyone I could. At the same time, I was studying for the GMAT because business school is something that I'd always kind of thought of for after sports. And I met with a couple teams and started doing some more formal interviews. And went to the winter meetings and did all that. And I tell you what, if you want to lose your voice and have sore feet, go to the winter meetings wearing even the most comfortable dress shoes. Your voice is going to be shot and your feet are going to hurt. So I did that, pounded the pavement for a couple days, made a couple good connections with some people, and ended up connecting with the Brewers, talking through stuff, which really helped because one of my big issues was if I could be near home, that would be amazing. So, I mean, I kind of tried to thread the needle, I guess, a little too thin with being local based on supporting family, but it worked out okay.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I ended up with an opportunity with the Brewers. I mean, I got lucky with a young, really smart front office that said, sure, why not? My thought, I guess, patting myself on the back was, I played long enough to at least have some credibility, but I came in with enough questions and the assumption that basically I don't know anything, but I want to learn, to where they said, all right, maybe we can craft this into a beneficial relationship.
Sure, definitely. And as far as that goes, you and I didn't come up in the analytics generation. Like it's a whole another world. So how have you transitioned into now having to study and look at that stuff and how kind of the game is now,
Man, it's amazing. It feels like as recently as 2012 when we first played together in AA. It's like it's night and day.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone had video and everyone started to have TrackMan, I think, in 2013. But none of that stuff was accessible to us.
No.
And looking back at it, like I've done some breakdowns of players and looking at stuff from this end now. Like, man, I never would have signed me. Like, yeah, the velocity may have been there, and I throw enough strikes that I would be, I guess, deemed zone control, but not command. But it's like I don't strike anybody out to what I guess should, and my arm action is longer and looser and whatever, and it's like stuff that I thought was good.
Yeah.
It's like no, that stuff is terrible. So it's really cool to see all the smart guys upstairs, their perspective with what they see, not only with just empirical data, what the spreadsheets spit out, but then also with their approach to kind of baseball visuals and how they piece it all together. It's remarkable to see, and the brain power on these guys. I mean, it's like PhDs leaving positions with big companies to come work in an R&D group or in an operations group for a mid-market baseball team. And they're like, no, you don't understand. I love sports. I love baseball. And I want to be around the people that are succeeding with, less payroll and pushing it forward. So it's amazing to see how all these people end up in the same place and create such incredible content to where even if the performance on field isn't there, the infrastructure upstairs is so strong and sound that it's like, don't worry, we're confident in what we built out. This is going to regress back to the mean of this guy's performance. Everything's going to be cool. So it really is interesting to finally see people upstairs don't judge you on one outing. But the tough part is you got to be in the top 25, or I guess 26 now, to have that kind of latitude of, all right, we trust that you got here. We're going to help you stay here. But taking that and building it into every player's confidence in the minor leagues, So when they get to the big leagues, they are not overwhelmed by anything other than the scene. You know what I mean? They're used to the work ethic. They're used to the analytics. They're used to the coaching staff and the vernacular in the clubhouse. So yeah, guys are in such a good position to succeed, which is amazing. But at the same time, it's like everything is so much more competitive. I mean, it's been 7-8 years since '95 was loud, on a mound in Double-A, and now it's like, oh, the 15 non-roster guys all sit 96. It's like, oh, this is a different game in 5 years. What's going on?
Right. It's totally different, and it's hard. Like I said, it's not just about getting people out. Now it's spin rate and all kinds of different things. And I heard this term tunneling now. It's like all these new. To me, I'm old school, man. If you can get people out, you know what I mean? And I don't care, like exit velocity. Okay, we know when a ball gets hit hard. You know what I mean?
You can hear it, and it makes you shiver. You see it and you flinch. It's like,
okay. Right. I don't care what speed it left the bat. It's a hard hit ball. So anyway, I'm old school in that. So I'm sure, but you've had to adjust to the new way. So
yeah, a little bit, but it totally makes sense. I feel like for the most part, it's just putting numbers to the same thing that we already talked about.
Right.
Or at least the way we were kind of raised and groomed in baseball. So it's interesting how players now have access to it, whereas previously, unless you were doing something that was so wrong or so good, you got extra attention. Otherwise, if you fell into that, 80% in the middle, it's like, just keep doing what you're doing. You'll be fine. If it works out, great. If not, whatever.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Last thing I wanted to bring up, I remember you used to be a big boxing fan, and you used to live tweet some of the boxing matches. And I know your boy Max Kellerman he's friggin' boxing guy,
he's
right?
A fanatic, yeah.
Yeah. So when you used to like boxing, how did you, who were some of your favorite boxers, or how did you kind of get into all
that? I think it was just something that it was always fun to watch. I mean, growing up, someone's dad would buy a Mike Tyson pay-per-view, and it's like, oh, cool, this is awesome. And then you see a guy pummel someone else. It's like, oh, that was quick.
Right.
Honestly, I started getting really interested in it. I was always kind of following it, but seeing the smaller guys like Oscar De La Hoya and Felix Trinidad, those were the guys that were really interesting to see. Not only power punchers, but guys that had finesse and could move. And then, love him, hate him, or whatever. I mean, Floyd Mayweather's a guy that you watch him, and it's like the guy is an artiste. You see it and you respect it. And any opportunity to watch him fight was really fun. Marquez Pacquiao is another one of those where it's like, whoa! Every time those guys fought was amazing. So I mean, I'm also going back several years, but combination of having kids that are almost 4 and just kind of stuff like that. It's hard. Less attention paid to the extracurriculars that once were amazing to watch.
No, I totally hear you. So, but as far as COVID goes, everything's good, family good, everyone's okay during the pandemic.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. We're all good. Fortunately, we haven't had any scares or anyone directly connected to us affected in a major way. So we've been really lucky with that. But it's one of those things you just kind of continue to put your mask on and do your thing. So there's always a hope that things close up because the hardest part right now is keeping our boys around the house more. So things are good. Long story short, things are all right.
That is good. Well, I'm glad I got to track you down, and this is one of my favorite episodes, man. I got to tell you, it's great.
All right.
So I really appreciate you coming on, and we'll have to do it again soon.
Absolutely, I'd absolutely love to. Big show. So.
The building or the big show? Which one do you like better?
Oh, the building was good, but Big Show is my favorite just because Wade singing the Big Show's intro. It's one thing that'll never go away.
I'm with you, man. Well, thank you again, and we'll catch up soon.
Definitely.
Thanks a lot. You got it. Another great episode in the books, man. That one was awesome. That was great insight from Bo. What a crazy story. Like I said in the beginning, man, it really, you got to hold it together mentally to get to where he got to. So my thanks to Bo Schultz. Hope you guys enjoyed all those stories. Had a lot of fun. This is one of my favorite episodes. So hope you guys really enjoyed it. Once again, you can always find me at Too Tall Sports Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon now. You name it, I'm there. Please subscribe, rate, and review. I need those 5 stars. And we'll have another episode for you next week. Looking forward to it. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.